just inside the 1. Stafford wants the fade. Robinson, touchdown Rams! Little triple option to give us to Patterson and Cordero. Patterson will not get there. Greg Gaines, the first to contact the Falcon running back. It's Henderson, hole, touchdown. Mariota, short toss, intercepted. Off the bubble, it's Jacoby Durant. One man to beat. Mariota, he spins away and he's down inside the 10. Cup and Robinson stacked to the top. Stafford looking for Cooper. Cup over the shoulder grab and Cup's in for his second touchdown of the year.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of East Coast Rams podcast. I am your co-host, Ashton Spencer, with my awesome co-host, Zach Mayer. Rams were looking this week to bounce back after a tough loss to the Bills, and they ended up seeing Atlanta come to town. It was a roller coaster ride of a game. Rams doing great job in the first three quarters. In the fourth quarter, the Rams struggled a little bit, and Ramsey ended up having to moss someone to kind of stop a comeback from happening. Zach, just what are your initial reactions to this game? How was your emotions? I'm pretty sure the Rams just love to get our blood pressure very high and not make an easy game an easy game.
Yeah, one of the quotes that Sean McVay had after the and during his post conference, I think everyone was thinking the same thing, and it's like we all just needed to drink after that game. Honestly, I was pumped for most of this game, and I think it was around the time that I said, "Man, the Rams, like I could really get used to the Rams having an armchair kind of a day where you're not super intense, your blood's not boiling, you're not always at the edge of your seat, like freaking out, like are they going to have a good drive? Are they going to have a bad drive? Whatever." And that was about the time that things started to turn. So yeah, I know we're going to break this thing down, so I'll give more of my thoughts down below. But yeah, I think we all could have used a few stiff drinks right after that.
Yeah, I am almost certain the Falcons were watching my Twitter feed when I said, I was like, oh, I wish we could face the Atlanta Falcons every week. And then, oh my gosh, I think they got the block punt right after I sent that tweet. I was like, geez, this is why you never talk crap until after the game is done. Oh gosh. Let's go ahead and kind of break down the game, Zach, here real quickly, and then we'll talk about both the offense and defensive sides of the ball. Quarter one. So the Rams kick off. The Falcons have a solid first drive, a little sloppy. They end up kicking a field goal, and they miss. I am a little salty about this, Zach, because this costed me my number 1 seed in in my fantasy league. But besides that, it was good for the Rams because those 3 points came very much into play near the end of the game. The Rams would end up responding with a touchdown drive to one Robinson, which Sean McVay must have listened to our podcast, Zach. Just listening to us talk crap about how Robinson was invisible and we had spent all this money on him. The Falcons end up responding with a 6-play drive that ends up with them trying to go for it on fourth and not getting it. The Rams will end up responding right after that with a touchdown by Henderson. The Falcons
which real quick to go on that one, that turnover, I mean, they were on like the 50-yard line. Like this wasn't, they weren't, kind of deep into their own territory, into the red zone. This was like close to the 50-yard line, if not on the 50-yard line. So that was kind of a bold move by the Falcons to just to go again on four and or to try to do that fourth down play. So it was a very interesting move, but I'm really glad that our defense held. I'm pretty sure the Falcons probably thought, oh, the Bills completed, what was it, 80% of their third down plays last year. So they're like, or last week, and so they thought the fourth down would probably be some high percentage too. But it was really good that our defense stood up on that fourth down.
Uh, I I tend to think it's more, at least from my perspective. If you're a team like the Falcons, it's kind of like the Lions last year with us. In order to beat a team of the caliber of the Rams, you're gonna have to score points. You can't settle for three a lot, and you definitely can't go three and out. Like, you don't get a lot of options, and if you get a fourth and one, like, percentage wise, I believe last year 60% of teams made fourth and one. I believe it was one of those things where some team this weekend tried to kick a 60-yard field goal versus doing fourth and one, and like percentage wise, you go for the fourth and one. So I think your
Mm-hmm.
win percentage analytically goes up a lot more if you make that fourth and one. And I think that's kind of the direction the coaching staff went in Atlanta. It's also why they went for two when they didn't need to, because they needed to score points and catch up for any hope of possibly beating the Rams. And they got a little lucky later on in the game, but they were looking at it in terms of you need to get maximum points when you can. So the Falcons end up kicking a field goal after Henderson's touchdown uh, in their responding drive. Uh, the Rams end up responding to that field goal with a decent 6 play drive. They get 50 yards. They get in the red zone, or near the red zone, and while trying to throw to Stafford trying to throw to Higbee, uh, it wasn't open at all, Zach. We can kind of talk about this in the offensive section when we talk about Stafford's two picks, but uh, yeah, it wasn't open at all. I don't get what he was doing there. Atlanta gets it, and they get a touchback off of it.
Yeah, I think Stafford in his post game conference called that his greedy play. He was, I don't know if you mentioned this, but he was 12 for 12, I think, at that point. Um, and he considered that his he was kind of being greedy. Higby was double covered. Um, I think it would have been a great play. I think if he would have got it, but yeah, it was just not a well
Thought through.
formatted yeah, in his mind. So
Well,
for
if
sure.
that was like Allen Robinson or Cooper Cup, I would understand more because they're more capable of mossing people. Like Higby, he's never been that guy to like fight through a defender to get a ball.
Hmm.
So that's, again, the quarterback's gonna know more than me about his receivers, but it just doesn't make sense on the face value to me personally. The Falcons end up, after getting the interception, having a 3 play drive, some good chunk plays. They go 36 yards down the field, and a rookie in Durant ends up picking off Marcus Mariota off of a tip pass. Uh, should have been a pick six. Jalen Ramsey was kind of joking around on his podcast. I would recommend everyone to listen to his podcast. Uh, he was joking around saying that, like, all the DBs were telling him he should have taken it to the crib, and Durant was like, "I didn't think Mariota was that fast." um, I don't know what to say to that, Zach, but good for the rookie for making the play in the first place.
Yeah, I'm glad he was around because it like bobbled off of the wide receiver's helmet a couple times before it kind of flew into Durant's hands. So a very well designed play by him on staying with it and getting that ball and taking it down. Um, he was definitely a standout in this game. Definitely deserves. If we gave out game balls, I would give him a game ball.
Yeah. The Rams would end up off of that interception getting a touchdown. That was, I would say, a top five pass from Stafford as a Ram so far. That end zone fade, I believe. Such a beautiful pass, perfectly just placed. A top five pass in my book for Stafford as a Ram. Uh, Falcons end up
And
ending till half. Uh, Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Yeah, they did 3 plays and basically they were trying to get something moving with the very short period of time that they had, but it just ended in the half.
hmm So the Rams end up kicking off, and they go 13 plays, 78 yards. They stall in the red zone. Do you remember? Is this the drive, Zach, that Robinson had the touchdown that was called back, or was that later?
No, so that is this one. So Cooper Cup should have only had one touchdown. That was definitely this one, and this was super strange because even when they called it a medical timeout, and but they did it they didn't blow the whistle until I think the ball was in the air to
Mid
Robinson,
play.
or Robinson had it. Like it was mid play by the time that they called it, and then they had to go back, and I that was just bad officiating um, on that play. Like whether it was supposed to be or not, the game was like the play was already being done. It was great that it still ended up as a touchdown, um,
No, that
but
ended as a field goal.
no. That one did end as a touchdown. That one was the Cooper Cup.
Okay,
So
okay. So that
yeah,
was
so
the
they
third
went
quarter.
down.
I got you.
Yeah. So the third quarter one was when they had to settle for a field goal, and there was no touchdown. They did 2 fades instead of, and I'll get to that. I have big problems about that one. But this was the one where they did this weird medical timeout. But then they tossed it to Cooper on the other side, and he got the touchdown there.
Yeah. No clue. We'll talk about that more. Um, Falcons respond by going three and out, and then the Rams get the ball back, and Stafford throws. I have no clue why he threw that ball trying to go the cup, and it just he didn't see. I believe it was a linebacker. Didn't see a linebacker, and linebacker just got a free pick, just easy peasy. Falcons end up doing a deep pass. Mariota was at what 5 plays, 20 yards off of the interception to get a touchdown. Uh, Drake London, really, really good player in this game, and I think I would keep an eye out for him in the future, especially fantasy wise. I think he's going to be a stud out of what USC, I believe. Um, So after the Falcons touchdown, the Rams end up going 13 plays, 80 yards down the field, stalling out again, getting a field goal. So for the most part, you had an interception. They got points off of it. We responded with a field goal. I still don't think the game was out of hand until probably 2 drives from now. The Falcons go 8 plays, 72 yards, and they hit a pretty wide open. I'm gonna butcher this guy's names. Zacchaeus. Uh, yeah, man. It felt like in the fourth quarter, our defense, especially our safeties, got very, very.
Yeah, that was the play where I think Ramsey was like calling for help, if I'm not mistaken, where he thought a safety was supposed to help cover him, cover the receivers that were coming. that was coming through. And was that the one? I believe that was.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it was. And this is the second week in a row where you have Ramsey in a underneath coverage. Or it looks pretty clearly. Again, we don't know. We don't have the play sheet. But it looked from all intents purposes that he was on the underneath coverage and he's supposed to have safety coverage above, and the safety goes too far close to the middle of the field, and they don't, and we do not have athletic enough safeties to get over there in enough time to cover someone who goes above the underneath coverage. So second week in a row that has happened. This defense is starting to worry me with stuff like that. You cannot let that type of coverage get broken consistently, because you're just giving away free deep touchdowns. And against Buffalo, it's a little bit more understandable that there's a lot to defend against that type of team. Against the Falcons, they have two key players. Outside of that, it's not much going for them. So you can't let people like that beat you, like Zacchaeus,
Mhm.
especially with the talent we have on the defensive side. Okay, off my soapbox. Rams end up doing not a 3 and out, but 6 plays, uh, 16 yards. We end up deciding the punt, and this is where, like, I was irritated up to this point, but I wasn't concerned. And of course, our special teams gets a block punt. It was terrible blocking. It wasn't even like the dude jumped over the line. It wasn't even like he busted through the line. The line wasn't there. They didn't even
Yeah,
attempt
when
to block him. That was one of the worst block punts I've seen by the Rams, and we've seen a good amount of them in the last 3 years, which is pretty sad. I guarantee you we're probably top five in most block field goals and punts in the league. Um,
for sure you can't allow them to jump inside that A gap and just barrel towards them. Like
Not even
that
jump,
was just
just walk
yeah.
through the A gap. Like, it's
Hmm.
one thing if they jump and they make a great play and they get the arm up enough to block the punt. Uh, but man, you can't allow just such a breakdown like that to happen, and then they get a touchdown off of it. Uh,
And then they
the
go for a
Ram,
2 point conversion, which I thought was an interesting. I mean, it worked out into their favor, but
no,
it was
it
interesting
really
how.
didn't do anything for him.
Well,
I
the
think
only thing that happened for them was is that if they made it a 6 point game, so a touchdown would have won it. If they would have just kicked the field goal, it would have been a 7 point game to tie it. So it just seemed, I guess it just seemed weird, um,
they didn't
that
want to tie if they got in that situation, because a team like that, they know they're not probably going to win the longer the game goes on, right? So
that's true. That's probably true.
yeah, I mean, statistically, you look, the Falcons aren't built to win in OT. Uh, but they had a lot of fighting spirit, and we made a ton of mistakes. They kind of recovered after being so sloppy in the first half. So they end up blocking our punt. The Rams come back, and we have 3 plays, uh, a short one to Cup, a few pass attempts, and then he hits Cooper Cup. And I don't know what it is with our comeback games, or games where teams are coming back against us, and I guess a Cooper Cup and a block punt is like a mandatory thing for us to give up now, because Cup fumbles. I mean, we almost never see that. He could have just easily went down. I think that's going to be something you see Cup not do in the future in different circumstances, uh, because
I mean, it was a beautiful throw and a beautiful catch. I mean, he was wide open. Like there was nobody around him, and then he starts going up the field, and obviously, the rest is history. And but the other thing is like Allen Robinson was right there and could have grabbed the ball, and he missed the ball too. So Um, so yeah, just when we talk about statistics, that's just a statistic that doesn't happen. That's a very low percentage chance of happening, and yet here we are.
Yeah. Dude, I was just on the couch like I was awestruck, Zach. I couldn't imagine if I was in the stadium. I would just be like, "There's no way that just happened after a block punt, a cup fumble." Ugh.
I
Um.
can't believe it.
So the Falcons recover that, and they end up pushing towards their red zone. You have Mariota try to do a deep throw, and Ramsey just mosses their wide receiver. Uh, Not the person I would be throwing to. I would probably throw to London in that type of situation. But yeah, throw at the guy covered by Jalen Ramsey. That's going to definitely work out for you.
Well, I mean,
You
I think the problem with this play was Aaron Donald. I mean, yes, Jalen Ramsey's getting all the credit for mossing this wide receiver, but if you go back and look at like the all 22 version of it, you can see that Aaron Donald is the one pressuring him, and he has to throw it higher than I think he was targeted, because if he would have thrown it lower, it was going to be a catch touchdown. I most
well, I
guarantee that it was. But I think it
I
was Aaron Donald's pressure that pushed it, made him throw it up higher and get rid of it faster than he wanted to get rid of it.
I don't disagree that Aaron Donald putting pressure caused the throw to be higher, but I'm not gonna say that Ramsey still didn't have opportunity to play the ball. Like you remember that one deflected pass to I believe D Hop, where you had the athletic where Ramsey kind of flew over the wide receiver while batting the ball. Uh, Before it could be caught. He can make plays from behind to stop that type of thrown ball. So I'm just saying we don't know if he would have scored exactly. Um, it would have been higher percentage than what happened, but still, nevertheless, Ramsey makes an impressive play. Aaron Donald is Aaron Donald, which for some reason some people want to say he's been useless or hasn't been present in the last 2 weeks, as if he isn't the most double and triple team rush player in the entire game. I just don't get why people. It's like, are you not watching the same game I am? I
I
don't get.
mean, he was the only Rams player via PFF to score above a 90 um, in their ranking. So, there is that.
I don't know. And then the Falcons, sorry, the Rams, after they get the interception, they do a few plays, and once it's third or fourth down, they end up doing a safety to basically waste enough time so Falcons can only do Hail Marys.
And so this was the interesting call, because obviously we just had the block punt. Our punter is unsure if he's capable of punting at this point. I mean, he took a hard hit, um, and so they're like, "What do you do?" And all of a sudden, we see Powell come out there, and we're like, he looked like he was going to punt the ball. We just thought, like, that's what I thought. I was like, is he really going to punt this ball?
No,
I
the
know he's
second I saw Powell, I knew he was going to do safety because we were five up. And the second you're five up, or sorry, six up, the second you're six up, 2 points won't matter. They need a touchdown no matter what to win it. And at that point, um, you rather lose the time and just take the loss if they can get a Hail Mary versus give them more time to get in position to get easier touchdown. So it made a lot of sense. I thought it was a really well coached, or not coached, but well thought, kind of brought to light plan. And apparently, the one who came up with that was Pal. So I don't
no, it
know
was
how true
Wolford.
that is, or
It
was
was
it
Wolford.
Wolford? Okay.
Yeah, it was Coach McVay said it on his Coach McVay show, that Wolford was the one who initiated that conversation, which As far as Rams players go, I don't make this unknown, but Wolford's probably my least favorite Rams player. But that was a good thing to throw out there. Apparently, they do practice that. It's kind of they kind of Sean McVay was kind of joking like, why do we really? Or it's like some players ask why do we practice it, and it's for these instances of when you need to practice it to kill some time off the clock.
Yeah, when you kind of choke a 28-3 lead. Uh, Not fully choked though. We're not the Falcons. I know a lot of people on Twitter, especially on Falcons Twitter, was getting super excited. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna break the curse," as if we're the Patriots. Like we didn't do that to y'all. You guys need to do that to the Patriots, and then you would break the curse. You're still a meme, and I'm happy we did not become a joke for a week for choking. Uh,
There were several
all
other teams in the NFL that took that honor.
Oh yeah, it was actually a lot of teams choked leads this last week, so um, we were not one of them, and I'm happy because I would have been very depressed for like probably 30 minutes, and then I would have remembered, hey, we won a Super Bowl, so I really don't care. Quarter two. All right, Zach, let's move forward and kind of talk about the offense more specifically. Uh, uh, Rap Sheet did come out and say that Tremaine Ingram is out indefinitely because of a fractured fibula. Um, that sucks. He's been a player I've kind of championed. I've had a lot of belief in him. I watched him a good amount because a lot of my families are a lot of my family like USC, the South Carolina USC, and they play Clemson a lot. So I did get to see Tremaine Ingram during college, and he always impressed me. I thought he's done a solid job whenever he did start for the Rams. Just sad to hear, Zach, and it's more turnover on the offensive line that it's looked shaky. They did better last week, but again, that's not a great defensive line to go against. So they still have a lot to prove.
For sure. The Rams did a lot of interesting things just because of the fact that they did have this shakeup. I was super impressed with the O line this week. Again, I know it's the Falcons, so what can you really say? But just like I said, I was just more um, just impressed by what they did, and um, they we had the injury with Ankrum, and we adjusted with that, and then we had Skoranek in I formation
Fullback.
as a fullback, and this was interesting in and of itself, and I think it helped tremendously to this run game that just was pretty much non-existent during the Bills game, where there was a couple okay runs by Henderson, but other than that, that's it. This game, it was so much more. It was so much better for the running backs so that they could open up the pass game more and things like that. So I was definitely happy. And then AJ Jackson, or I think he did great filling in that role
Oh
for
yeah.
Ingram. Again, it's that next man up mentality. And I think it's great, and that he's going to a position that um, he never really played before. He was more of a tackle, and he had to fit into a guard position. So very very happy with his performance that night. Again, it's against the Falcons, but when you are filling in a fill-in spot, I think that says a lot when you kept the quarterback pretty much clean.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Jake Ellabogan for pointing this out, and I didn't notice it until I rewatched some of the tape, and we kind of mimicked the Bills with how they ran on us because they used a lot of fullback formations, a lot of motion with the full. with their fullback, and we kind of did the same thing, but not with a fullback, but with Skoranek at fullback. So it was an interesting way to kind of have lessons learned from that Bills game and then implementing it into your own play calling. So I thought that was fascinating. I don't know if that was something pre-planned or if he already had it in his playbook. He was like, well, I think I should start using it more because we're struggling with run blocking. So
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think, like I said, I think they did a great job with what they had, and they made adjustments, and I think they made the perfect adjustments. You want to talk about some wide receivers?
yeah, Allen Robinson isn't in witness protection program anymore.
Yeah, he was targeted 5 times with 4 receptions, 53 yards, averaging 13.3 yards, with his longest being 29. And he also had that touchdown. So um, definitely great for him to kind of get his moment, especially at SoFi Stadium. Makes it even more, makes it so much more better. Um, Cooper Cup was still being Cooper Cup. He had 11 receptions for 108 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously, he had that one fumble, but this is Cooper Cup. Um, he's still the best. He's still the best at his position, from all aspects as a football player as a whole. Um, and But the other good things is that Stafford was passing this ball around. I mean, Higbee was targeted 9 times, caught 7 of them for 71 yards. Akers was in the passing game with 2 receptions, 18 yards. Skoranek had 2 for 16 yards, and even Powell got a catch too through that. So a lot better job of spreading the ball around, and they were hitting. Um, a lot. They were hitting more yards than they were doing against the Bills.
Yeah, let's talk about Stafford a little bit more specifically, Zach. At least I kind of equate it to what when I was thinking about when we were writing up notes for this podcast. I was equating it to like you have a all-star paper for school you have written for college, and you have for 2 pages straight like you're knocking out a ballpark. But there's 2 paragraphs where you look like just for some reason you wrote like a second grader. So everything else is A plus, but 2 paragraphs just terrible. And that's what I felt with Stafford's performance. There's so much great in this game, like so much, and for the full game. But there are moments where you're just like, what the hell were you thinking? And with his 2 picks, outside of that, like he only had what three, so he had 9 misses, two being picks. So really, only 7 misses in the entire game. That's pretty damn good. And one of those should have been a caught touchdown. May I remind people that Higby just couldn't bring in. Uh, it just he was really on fire. It just I don't I wish that part of his game could be refined a little bit. Now he doesn't. I feel like he has a lot worse luck than some other QBs because I sometimes I'll watch Mahomes and he'll throw like 4 interceptions in a row and they're just not caught. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Uh, but Zach, what's your takeaway from Stafford's general performance this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think he played really well. Like we mentioned, he did have those 2 interceptions, but one of them, yes, I think was completely his fault. He shouldn't have thrown it into that double coverage to Higby. That was a poor throw. The other one was just a better defensive play, and he kind of just the defender kind of got the jump on the ball. So I think we wouldn't be so hard if he didn't have so many from the previous game. Um, just based on what he did. But like I said, 36 for 27, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns. I that's a pretty good game of itself. I mean, yeah, he had the two interceptions, but I mean, if you didn't have the block punt, things would have also been a little different going down that road. Um, so I think he's playing well. I think the biggest thing was just that his offensive line and doing that I formation with Skoranek in the back, I think definitely helped give Stafford more time to make the plays. Um, and I we saw him run, uh, even if it was for no yards. He still ran to try to get something out of it. We saw him the ball a couple of times, throw the ball away a couple of times, which is great. We don't want to see him take sacks. The more sacks he gets, I think the more pressure builds on him, and then he's more likely to make mistakes. So either he's red hot and he makes mistakes, or he's getting hit so many times he's making mistakes. So there needs to be that right balance um, of
Just
the
being on
game. But
fire.
yeah,
Fourth
so
quarter Stafford the whole game. That's that would be my perfect scenario. Zach is ice in the veins Stafford, but the whole game without having to make a mistake and get angry about it in the first quarter. That's what I would love. But he's imperfect QB. He's a slinger, but man, love him. He brought another championship to us, so can't complain too much. All right, let's kind of talk about the running backs. Zach, yeah, you can look in retrospect. Uh, they didn't do terrible this game, and you can look back at how the Bills shut down Derrick Henry on Monday Night Football. Like, man, Zach, that was pretty brutal. That Cam Akers, oh no, sorry, Daryl Henderson ended up with less attempts and more yards than Derrick Henry did against the Bills. So just think about that. Um, I'm not saying Henderson is Derrick Henry. What I'm saying is the Bills are a really good defense. You can't really look at our running backs through that kind of lens. But they didn't do great this game either. They were doing all right, but I'm missing that bell cow type of running back. I don't know how you feel, Zach. I'm missing
yeah,
Todd Gurley so much.
yeah, I miss it too. Miss him too, and I think the NFL has almost moved away from that. I mean, there's not many teams who have a cowbell anymore. They're more doing this by two man or doing it by a three-man committee, and I think it's just these running backs. The health of these running backs are just not very long, and so obviously that's an important position because if you can't have a running game, then your passing game gets struggles a lot. So needing to find one or two you know really good running backs is something that you need. In my personal opinion, I think Henderson is if I would, want someone to be, the bowling ball, the heavy hand, I would want to give it to him. There was plenty of times where I was disappointed in our coaching staff for not giving it to Henderson, especially when they were on the field goal line. When they went for the field goal, the two plays before that they were on the 1 yard line, and they decided to do two passing plays when Henderson just got 6 yards to get to the 1 yard line. Um, and I do have Henderson in my fantasy, so I do get that. But Henderson's also just the bigger guy. I mean, he's the guy who puts his shoulder down and he can get an extra yard or two if he wants to. I mean, like you said, when the Rams were against the Bills, Cam Akers got no yards. Did get very many attempts, but no yards at all. Henderson at least did something. Whether it was 3 yards, 4 yards, whatever, he still was able to push a little bit more. And so I think you're going to see Henderson be more of that red zone goal line. Um, push the pile forward if need be.
Yeah, so I think maybe that injury with Akers is still lingering a little bit, Zach, just because you can see like he doesn't have the power he did his rookie season, and it kind of makes you think about the what if he didn't get injured last preseason, because the injury he got, it's very well known most people don't come back to playing, and then the people who do clearly have not enough, or not enough, but don't have as much power. And I think it's been clear, like, he doesn't have the same power he did as a rookie. As a rookie, he didn't just have the speed of Henderson. He had the power of a lot of good power backs. He was a really good total package, and it just sucks. It's bad luck. It's not his fault through lack of trying. It's just like your body can only take so much, and running back is a position that's very brutal on the body. So I just don't think he has it. It kills me to say that. And Henderson,
Yeah,
I like. He's just he's not well rounded enough as a running back in the NFL to be effective a full game, and he has injury issues himself.
yeah, he does. And with Henderson, I feel like he's just not this nice shiny toy that Cam Akers is. He's not this shiny object that people. He's not super explosive. Um, he's not
He's
a he's
average.
not a he's average. But what's good about him is like he seems more reliable. He's a bigger guy, so if you want a back that is going to protect your quarterback, I think that he's going to protect you more than Akers is going to protect you.
Yes, very
If you need
underrated in protection.
if you need to push the pile and get, you need 6 yards, you can guarantee, I think almost guarantee that if you need those 6 yards, I think Henderson's going to push to get that extra. If he could only get four, he's going to push to get two more. Um, and that's just because of the way he's built. He's built it differently. He's built a little bit more bulkier than Akers is. And I think Akers, when he gets hit, he kind of just goes backwards. He doesn't really push forwards.
Not anymore. He in his rookie year he did. He definitely did.
Yeah, and
Um,
I mean that's just more of the grind, and a lot of it is mental. I mean, when you come back from an in like a
yeah, you do
season-ending injury or any injury, you come back kind of worried and kind of um, you kind of
hesitant to go
handicap
full.
yourself. Yeah.
Uh, I did propose this on Twitter, Zach, and tell me what you think of it. I think a good trade candidate for the Rams, especially if we lose one of our running backs, even if we don't, if we still have mediocre running uh, game over the next few weeks, I think we could trade for Cordell Patterson. We have seen that he is a versatile tool. He's a little bit older. I feel like the Falcons are realistic with their roster. They won't be looking to be playing deep in the playoffs or anything like that. So I do think they would trade him. He is relatively affordable. And I think McVay would have a lot of fun game planning with him as a tool. What do you think of that? Do you think he would be worth, let's say, a third round pick for Cordell Patterson?
you know, I mean, I would give anyone a shot. I'm still kind of mad that we got rid of Sonny Michelle, but it is what it is. But for a third round pick, yeah, I mean, I'm if it's going to improve our running game, I'm all for it
Well, he can catch too, and that's what we saw in the game against us. It
for sure.
just he's kind of a little he's been on a bad Falcons team for the last 2 years, and he's been the highlight of their team. So I think he would do good in our system, and that would be a really low key pickup that wouldn't cost a lot, but that would like boost the team a good amount. Quarter three. Let's go ahead and get into the defense, Zach. The defense only gave up around, let's say, 18 points this game. What's your reaction to this defensive game so overall against the Falcons? Um, because yeah, they only scored 18 points, and then let's also take off the account that they gave up a touchdown instantly in the red zone after being on the field for a full drive. So they, the defense had a good night. What's your take on it?
No, I thought the defense played pretty well. Obviously, before it got to the middle of the third quarter, it was 28-3. Um, so I thought that going from that was excellent. Obviously, we also had uh, the early um, the early interception by Kobe Durant. Kobe Durant also got a sack, so he is also the first rookie to get a sack and an interception in the same game. So that's pretty notable. Um, I know I think Jalen Ramsey definitely bounced back this year, yet or that bounced back this week. Yes, he did get that touchdown, or he did miss on that touchdown. But again, we kind of all agreed that we think this is more of a safety problem, that no one was helping him out in that coverage when they should have been. Uh, so so yeah, even coming to the end where yes, we didn't hear Aaron Donald's name, but that doesn't always mean anything. I mean, Aaron Donald is always getting double or triple teams, so if he is getting that presence, then someone else is going to have to make that move. And he was the one who did recover that final fumble at the end that completely sealed the game away from the Falcons. So all in all, I think they did a great job. Greg Gaines did an excellent job. I saw him out here. I think the one person that I don't really remember his name being called super often was Wagner. Um, I think Bobby Wagner is one of the one names that I feel like I didn't hear as
He,
often.
if
Did
I
he get a?
remember correct, he got a sack, and he also was part of helping stop on one of those fourth downs that they tried to do.
Gotcha.
So he's been, I wouldn't say quiet. I think he leads the team in tackles, but I feel like he's not just making huge splash plays in the context of these games because we've had two really weird games back to back, like
Hmm.
unnormal games, not like normal competitive games. So I think his kind of role will change throughout the season. Uh, Zach, I if I can, let me just say, me and you, we're not against uh kind of talking negatively or calling out someone like Aaron Donald or Jalen Ramsey. We're gonna be critical when we think they warrant it, and that kind of criticism, like you're being homer or you're just being protective of Jalen Ramsey. No, good example of Jalen Ramsey actually getting burnt is like Mike Evans in the Bucks divisional game. He got burnt in man coverage in that game for a touchdown. He was bad in that game. This was not the same situation, and I feel like people need to they need to learn difference between man and zone. Like first off, if they want to call other people's homers or not, uh, and same thing with like Aaron Donald getting pressures and stuff like that. Like just because he's not getting 20 sacks because he's getting the highest triple and double team rating out of all players doesn't mean he's not being effective. So I just wanted to put that out there before we moved on.
Yeah, no, I think those are all good points.
Uh, so Zach, what do you think of? I don't know if Durant will be in the next game or not, but let's say he gets the green light. Do you think Rochelle and David Long Jr. are in trouble for the second, or sorry, for the third and fourth cornerback spots?
I don't think Rochelle is as much. I think he's still learning. I think he still had a couple good plays out there. I mean, he was coming in towards the end, but um, David Long Jr. It's so hard because I really like David Long Jr. I think he's done some great things in the past, um, but he's not, doesn't seem like he's at the same level where he should be. Um, and when you're trying to give Troy Hill a break, and I think he's questionable for this week. It's just you need someone who's going to play aggressively, and I'm not sure I've seen that much uh, aggression from him. But you know, like I said, I like our corners as a whole. I think we have good depth. Yes, they can make mistakes sometimes, but I still think we have a good group of corners.
Um,
What are your thoughts?
you know me, Zach. I am not much of a David Long fan at all. It's nothing personal. I think he's a great guy. Um, awesome dude. I just he constantly gets burnt. He does. He cannot play in this league against top tier wide receiver talent. He does fine against some of the lower tier wide receivers, but he will never be a 1 or 2 corner, and he struggles at 3. And I just think he's a kind of practice squad level guy, and the only reason why he's made the roster is because people have either failed to capitalize on him, or it was his draft position with the team, and the team not wanting to really give him up when he isn't terrible. He's just mediocre. Uh, so really, uh, I think I said, if I'm not mistaken, Zach, I said that I thought Darian Kendrick would end up getting a starting corner role by the end of the year. I still think that's going to be true. I th- I'm very high on DK. Um, I like Durant too. I saw both when they were playing in college. More DK, and I just think DK, once it clicks for him, he's gonna be. I think he's gonna be a star corner in the league for a while. Um, Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that'll eventually happen. Quarter 4.
Sweet. Talk about the Cardinals.
Yeah, let's talk about our friends, the Cardinals. What was your reaction to the Cardinals getting completely bailed out by the Raiders refusing to want to win their game? Just, I can't
They
believe.
were so
Oh
worried
my,
about popping champagne bottles. At least their fans were. Than
oh my,
actually.
just
Uh,
just the way that game ended, with not just like Kyler Murray running for his life, all over the dang place, for 2 point conversions, but just the way the refs called back a touchdown that should have been like the Cardinals got bailed out on so many circumstances, and then in overtime, just the way that went Renfro fumbled it twice, like in overtime. I just couldn't believe that they won that game. They did not deserve to win that game at all in the comeback fashion.
yeah, like I said, that was one of the games where there was a major comeback, um, and so I didn't get to watch the full game. I kind of caught some of the highlights, but man,
I
when
watched it.
you
I couldn't believe that the Raiders were giving up the things they were, and then like they get the stop in overtime, and all they had to do, they could literally on the 40-yard line kick the field goal and win it right then and there. And Renfro catches it, fumbles it, they recover, and then 2 plays later, they do the exact same play, and it happens with a fumble, but this time the Cardinals get it and get the recovery for the win. And it just, it pisses me off when we have a hard fought like comeback and then like the Rams get a pass interference and we lose to the Bills in 2020 the way we did, and we should have had our what I think it would have been the best comeback ever in our franchise history, but we get that taken away, but they get a win off of such a stupid fashion against the Raiders. Uh, but either way, they're 1-1. They lost in a blowout to the Chiefs, so we both have something in common: getting blown out in Week 1. We both win in Week 2, albeit the Rams a little bit. I I guess you could say a better fashion, but not much. Uh, they ended 11-6. Uh, Cliff Kingsbury has a habit of just completely wrecking the second half of the season for any team he coaches on. But they end up losing in the wild card round to the Rams. And I think we all remember that game where we just blew them out. And unlike the Falcons, we kept the boot on the throat the full game and just completely demolished them. They ended 11th in both offense and defense, so they were a borderline top 10 team. Uh, they lost a good amount of key players in Chandler Jones, Jordan Hicks, Christian Kirk, Chase Edmonds, pretty big names. They do bring in Marquise Brown. So Hollywood Brown, I think that's a upgrade from Christian Kirk. Not much of an upgrade. It's something. But they didn't really replace anything else. So their defense, I think, got a decent amount worse this year. And you see that with the Cardinals carving them up and the Raiders basically doing the same thing for 3 quarters. Uh, Zach, what's your impression of this Cardinals team, and has your opinion changed of them in the last 2 weeks?
No. I think the Cardinals, they always get into their own heads, and I think that's especially true to Murray. And if the Rams could just keep that up, and the Rams, do a very good job of getting into the quarterback's head, especially with Aaron Donald, Greg Gaines, Leonard Floyd. Our defensive front, when they make their presence known, they really rattle the quarterback. And yes, Murray can, scooch around but he's going to get caught sooner or later, and um, uh, I think that the Cardinals have some potential, but I just don't think they're all there yet. They're still missing Hopkins, so it's I I think I think it's going to be a nail biter, just because I feel like the Cardinals are going to want to do some trickery or something to mess us up. But um, I think the Rams are going to pull this one out.
Yeah, I think the key with Murray is not necessarily a great pass rush, but closing the pocket and stopping him from leaking out. Because that's what he did on the Raiders in the fourth quarter. He just continuously, the pocket would close and he would just get out around. And if he didn't throw it then he would just rotate back and go around the whole pocket again. And like the Raiders couldn't do anything about it. He was just running around in the backfield and they couldn't contain him in the initial pocket. And you just got to stop him from doing that. And we have been great in most of our games in doing that to Kyler Murray. So I expect the same thing. I agree with you. Or well, I initially thought it would be a close game. I think we're on a different level. I think they have regressed a little bit. They will get a little bit better whenever Hopkins comes back. I think that will add a explosive element to their team that they're missing right now. But Marquise Brown is like the only heavy hitter right now. James Conner is banged up, and I don't know if he's playing in this game. And if he's not playing in the game, Zach, he was the only thing that made him relatively like competitive at all in that second game in the season, if you don't remember. So like without D Hop and only Marquise Brown, I think we could put on the clamps, and I don't see us, if we build up a lead, doing another choke like last week. I would hope not.
Yeah, I mean, if you when you look at the stats from this past week too, I mean, the receiving yards for the Cardinals, there was their tight end in Zach Ertz. Like he had 8 receptions for 75 yards. Like that's their game leader highlight for receiving yards. So, um, just interesting to note that.
And our tight end coverage, which used to be a thorn in our side, we talked about it a lot last year, was mainly because our linebacking wasn't good enough to cover tight ends, and that was a big area where teams kind of would scalp us apart. In is thrown to the tight end. This year, we've done a really, pretty good job in covering the tight end. Kyle Pitts is not a bad tight end. He's a great tight end, and he didn't do good. And even the coach of the Falcons said, "This isn't fantasy football. We were trying to win, and we couldn't throw to the tight end." So I think that bodes well for this game if we have to cover their tight end, which is a pretty good one in Zach Ertz. Zach, do you want to go ahead and talk about some viewer questions?
Yeah, so we got a couple questions that came through our Twitter account. If you haven't, follow us at East Coast Rams. But Ramzilla uh, had a question for us. It would love to know our thoughts on the root causes for some of our recent second
Second
half
half.
challenges. The Rams in their last 5 games. In the second half of the game. Am I reading that right? Yeah. So they had 4 field goals and 4 touchdowns. So in the last 5 games, in the second half of the game, five field goals, 4 touchdowns. So a total of 9 scores. Also in those same last 5 games, they've also had in the second half 8 turnovers, 8 punts, 2 conversion on downs, 1 blocked punt, and 1 missed field goal. So 20 non-score drives. What do you think, Ashton, as far as what some of these root causes could be?
I mean, at least from my perspective, a part, a problem with looking at it that way is you're kind of cherry picking two of the weirdest games the Rams have had in a while. Um, and it so happens that Tampa Bay game and this Falcons game are included. And then you also include that Bills game we just went through, which is probably the worst Sean McVay loss since 2019 Ravens. So it can be really easy when looking at that lens to say, like, oh, we have some uh, big issues that need to be addressed. Um, will I sit here and say there aren't problems that we have right now that we need to address? Yeah, I agree. But I already saw us addressing some of them. There were just a lot of fluke things that happened in the second or in the fourth quarter of last weekend's game. That because I didn't really see a huge flaw with our defense, at least in the last game. And on the offense wise, like Um, Cooper Cup doesn't fumble that often. Like out of those 5 games, Cooper Cup has fumbled twice. Are you gonna start saying Cooper Cup has a fumbling problem? No, he doesn't. It's just a weird circumstance, and I feel like in that moment, Stafford and Cup can get caught up on trying to make hero or try to do hero ball, and that results in some mistakes and lapse of judgment, trying to go too far, like make moves that he wouldn't normally make, and he has a fumble because of it. So I would say it's more coincidence than anything else. We do have problems, especially on the offense, that we need to work through, but I don't think it's a trend, is what I'm trying to say. What about you, Zach?
If anything, I would say that it's sometimes we let the foot off the gas. I mean, we can see this with the Tampa game. Some of these instances where and especially this game where we kind of, and maybe
We
not
took
this
our
game as much,
NyQuil.
but yeah, we kind of just, we came back from half. We're up by a bunch. We scored a touchdown. Now we're up by even more. We have a 25-point lead and we're halfway through the third quarter. Um, so sometimes I feel
And
like we just let
McVay
the gas
goes
off.
into, like, I feel like McVay has a like 2 pages in the front of his play call book that's like, when I'm up high and I want to be lazy playbook, like vanilla play calls that he just does because he's like, oh well, this game's over. I can stop thinking.
Well, yeah,
I love
it's so that we
McVay.
don't have to do the big plays. Like he's like, well, I'm not going to use my super secret special plays when we're up by 25 points. But I think at the reverse, there's that also that panic that happens when we're down by 2 scores. Now we have to try to catch up, and we have that over panic where now we have to do all the hero work, like you mentioned. So I feel like it. If it's a closer game, we're just kind of going back and forth, or we're up by 2 scores instead of 3+ scores. I think we play a little bit different, and we don't just like we may not be pushing the brakes, but our foot is a little bit off the gas.
I agree with you, Zach. That's definitely that's been an issue with McVay, is adjustments typically, and adjusting to changing circumstances. He's always been one of those head coaches. If you notice, if things are going right, he just does it for the full game, and if things are going wrong, he tends to do it for the full game. He's gotten better in the last 2 years at halftime adjustments. I think that was a big part of why we won the Super Bowl, was adjusting at halftime, because he used to be really bad at that. But I want to start seeing quarter adjustments, and I think that's the reason why when we play big teams and whatever we're doing isn't working, we just never get in the game. It's like either what he pre-planned works and we're competitive, or it just doesn't, and we just play like crap against a good team. And I consistently see that with McVay, and hopefully they fix that. Let's go to our next question. At Payo Time says Allen Robinson's bounce back game. Um, yeah, I don't think there was necessarily anything bounce back. Like, he didn't have bad plays in the first game; they just didn't look his way. I think I almost feel like McVay had to yell at Stafford to actually look his way and throw the ball. So that's my opinion on it. He just needed attention more than anything. He needs to grow the trust of Stafford. Stafford's guys. He did the same thing with Woods last year. He ignored Woods until like game 6. So I'm not worried. He'll get his production eventually.
I agree with you. I wouldn't consider a bounce back game. If he was still only being targeted, a couple times, still no touchdowns, maybe. But I mean, in this game, he probably should have had 2 touchdowns. Obviously, we had that weird medical
Well, he
callback,
did have
but
2 touchdowns.
he in our hearts, not by someone's fantasy, but by our hearts, he had 2 touchdowns. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't consider a bounce back game either. I think it's progression, and we're just going to see more and more coming out of the weeks, and especially once you get Van Jefferson back as another um, you know deep threat. I think it will open up um, Allen Robinson a lot more.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a monster mid-season. But we'll kind of see how that goes.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Ashton, before we wrap things up?
No. Hopefully, our O line can stay healthy this next game. Uh, it should be a good game against the Cardinals, and hopefully, my fantasy team keeps on doing solid. Not too shabby.
Yeah, we'll have to do a breakdown of our fantasies, here in a couple weeks, and kind of go through what who we picked and why we picked them. So I think that would be a fun segment to do.
Yeah,
Maybe on
yeah.
the bye
When
week.
Yeah, I'll just tease it. I was the crazy guy who picked three tight ends in the first 5 rounds, and
Oh, we're gonna need to know why during that bye week.
yeah, it
Dave,
was controversial. But let me say, I am the highest overall scorer in the league so far. I'm gonna just put that out there and let people stew on that, and we'll kind of see if people are interested in talking a little bit more about fantasy in the future.
for sure. I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to even watch this game. I got kids softball that they like to play on Sunday afternoon, so we'll see how this goes. But I'll be following along on Twitter in case I can't see it. But
I'm
anyways,
sure the Rams will go up by 50, Zach, in the first quarter, and you can just leave it to
hey,
them the rest.
the last time I wasn't able to watch a Rams game, it was last year during the Jaguars game. So it
Oh,
was they did pretty well, all considering.
so what you're saying is they just like to give you a heart attack.
Pretty much, I think that's just what they like to do. Um, Well, with that, we're going to wrap things up with this episode of the East Coast Rams podcast. You can always send questions and feedback to feedback@eastcoastrams.com or hit us up on Twitter. We are getting some great feedback on our Twitter, getting to interact with a lot of different fans, getting quite a few people to follow us. And we're just really excited to kind of continue down this journey, bringing you guys season 2 and getting to meet with you and getting to interact with you guys. And it's just been fun over these last, just especially these last 2 weeks since we entered into the regular season. So please keep interacting with us, keep letting us know, give us feedback. We always want to be a part of that. We are a podcast of the fans for the fans. Our official Twitter account for East Coast Rams is at East Coast Rams, but you can also find Ashton at Rams fan Ashton1 and myself at Zach Mayer. And again, big thanks to everyone who listens to this pod and continues to interact with us. You guys are the reason why we do this. We love to talk about Rams, and we want to continue building this community together. If you have a couple minutes, please like, share, review this podcast so that we can, really just bring this to the world. Even though mostly it's a United States oriented sport, but it's starting to grow internationally. Um, and with that, we'll wrap it up. And you just remember, everybody, whose house? Rams house.